So many people, myself included, have been focusing on the negative side of Donald Trump's administration that I think it's only fair to acknowledge the significance of his status as our country's first non-English speaking president. Here's what we need to remember about Trump. In addition to being a bigot and an abuser and a criminal, he is also a gigantic doofus who can't keep his shit together in public for 5 minutes, even when his whole entire future depends on it. So, with that reminder in place, let's look at a few of the more on-brand aspects of his reaction to the whistleblower complaint and the House Democrats finally beginning impeachment proceedings. I confess that at a certain point in these last couple of weeks, I may have tuned this business out for a day or two. I'd been busy with some personal stuff, nothing bad, everything's fine, don't worry. Plus doing videos about stuff other than current events, and I sort of turned away from Trump and the impeachment story for a bit. And when I turned back, one of the first things I saw was Trump saying this.
And then you had Adam Schiff, who, even worse, made up my words, which I think is just a horrible, I've never even seen a thing like that. Adam Schiff, representative, congressman, made up what I said. He actually took words and made it up.
And Trump didn't step away from that accusation in the days that followed. To the contrary, he suggested that Schiff should be charged with treason for fraudulently fabricating a statement of the President of the United States. So, what's all that about? When I heard Trump say that, I naturally assumed that Adam Schiff had done no such thing, because that's how it always goes. But I was curious as to what Schiff had actually done. Because usually when Trump accuses an adversary of doing something bad, it turns out they didn't do anything remotely objectionable, and it's just Trump projecting. But every once in a while, the person Trump is attacking did do something wrong, and Trump is drastically overreacting. And sometimes it's fun to measure the distance between the crime Trump is accusing someone of and the thing they actually did. Well, not fun exactly, but it allows me to continue engaging with the endless waking nightmare that is President Trump without trying to put my head through the goddamn wall. So there's some value in it, I think. Anyway, this time, it was the first thing I said. Schiff didn't do anything wrong. Trump was attacking him for nothing. So if Schiff didn't fabricate a statement and try to pass it off as something Trump actually said, what did he do? On September 26, the House Intelligence Committee questioned Director of National Intelligence Joseph Maguire about the whistleblower complaint related to Trump's call with the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky. At the start of that hearing, Congressman Schiff, as the chair of the committee, made an opening statement. As part of that opening statement, he said,
"Shorn of its rambling character and in not so many words, this is the essence of what the President communicates. We've been very good to your country, very good. No other country has done as much as we have. But you know what? I don't see much reciprocity here. I hear what you want. I have a favor I want from you, though. And I'm going to say this only 7 times, so you better listen good. I want you to make up dirt on my political opponent, understand lots of it. On this and on that, I'm going to put you in touch with people, and not just any people. I'm going to put you in touch with Attorney General of the United States, my Attorney General, Bill Barr. He's got the whole weight of the American law enforcement behind him. And I'm going to put you in touch with Rudy. You're going to love him, trust me. You know what I'm asking, and so I'm only going to say this a few more times, in a few more ways. And by the way, don't call me again. I'll call you when you've done what I asked. This is, in sum and character, what the President was trying to communicate with the President of Ukraine.
In other words, Schiff took what Trump said during the actual call and summarized, shortened it, put it in his own words so that he could communicate the substance of what Trump said, only briefer and more clearly. And before and after that summary, Schiff made it clear that's what he was doing, that he was not directly quoting what Trump said during the call. There's a name for this thing Schiff did, this thing Trump says he's never seen anything like. It's called paraphrase. Merriam-Webster defines it as a restatement of a text, passage, or work giving the meaning in another form. It's not new, it's not unusual, it's not treasonous. By the way, even if Schiff had done what Trump says he did and tried to pass off a fake quote as something Trump really said, it wouldn't have been treasonous. Improper? Certainly. Dishonest? For sure. Grounds for Schiff to be removed from his office? I mean, yeah. But not treasonous. Treason is the act of betraying your country, not the act of lying on its shitty president. There's something else that Trump has said repeatedly in his own defense regarding the whistleblower complaint.
The statement I made to the president of Ukraine, a good man, a nice man, was perfect. It was perfect.
On an absolutely perfect phone call to the new president of Ukraine.
It was just a perfect conversation.
There was nothing done wrong. It was perfect.
That call was perfect. That was a perfect call.
You take a look at that call, it was perfect.
That was a perfect call. My call was perfect.
The call was perfect. I'm not the only person to notice how much Trump likes to use that word when describing his conversation with Zelensky. Lots of folks have been making fun of it, and that's understandable. Trump is the least articulate person ever elected president of the United States, possibly the least articulate person ever elected to any office anywhere. Most of what he says is semi-comprehensible gibberish at best, and it deserves to be made fun of, but, and maybe I'm reaching here because the most likely explanation for stuff like this is always Trump is an ignorant dipshit, I can't help but feel like his choice of the word perfect is revealing of more than his piss-poor verbal skills. Trump didn't say the call was innocent or inoffensive or innocuous. Again, probably because he doesn't know those words. I acknowledge that. He said it was perfect. Like he'd gone back and scored himself and judged that he'd done a flawless job. Like it was an obstacle course that he successfully completed. Like he knew there were ways in which he could have screwed up the call, but in his mind, didn't. Like, the call was perfect because I didn't explicitly propose a you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours arrangement with Zelensky. Or, the call was perfect because I framed my request for damaging information about my political opponent within a concern about corruption in Ukraine. And that's not me quoting something Trump said. That's me posing hypotheticals, which is also completely normal and common and not treasonous. In other words, and this is me paraphrasing myself, Trump thinks the call was perfect because even though it's obvious what he's doing, what he wants from Zelensky, and why, he communicates it in such a way that nothing he says is technically incriminating because it can all be explained legitimately. Even though everyone knows those legitimate explanations are bullshit. This is how crime bosses operate. True, most successful crime bosses are a lot better at this sort of thing than Trump is. Of course, I presume they're also a lot better at tying their shoes than Trump is, but that's neither here nor there. But the template is the same. Make it clear that you want someone else to commit a crime on your behalf, but do it in such a way that, if questioned, you can deny it without having to deny what you said. At this point, it might be helpful to touch on the linguistic concept of speech acts. A popular theory developed by philosopher of language J.L. Austin proposes that there are 3 levels of speech acts: locutionary, illocutionary, and perlocutionary. A locutionary speech act is the superficial meaning of the thing being said. So if I say, I need you to do me a favor, the locutionary act within that statement is me informing you that I need a favor from you. An illocutionary speech act refers to something implied within a statement, a result sought but not explicitly asked for. So if I say, I need you to do me a favor, I'm not just describing my need for a favor, I'm asking you to do me that favor without explicitly asking for it. And a perlocutionary act is the result of the statement. So if I say, I need you to do me a favor, and you get the intended message and respond by agreeing to do a favor for me. Trump definitely doesn't know anything about what I just said, but he knows instinctively how speech acts work because he uses them constantly, just the same as the rest of us do. When we're eating dinner at a restaurant and we say to a server, "Is there any ketchup?" we know what we're actually doing is asking for ketchup. And the server we're speaking to knows it too. We're communicating clearly but indirectly. When Trump responds to Zelensky talking about Ukraine wanting to continue to receive defense support from the United States by saying, and this is a direct quote, "I would like you to do us a favor, though," he's also communicating clearly. Trump knows what kind of deal he's proposing. Zelensky knows the deal. Everyone else who heard that call or read that memorandum recording the call knows the deal. Trump didn't come right out and say, if you want the U.S. to continue to provide aid to Ukraine, you have to investigate my political opponent. But he communicated that to Zelensky in a way that was unmistakable. And Trump can insist that he did it in such a way to avoid implicating himself in a crime, that his call was perfect. But it was only perfect in the locutionary sense. We all know what the illocutionary purpose of that conversation was. He didn't explicitly ask for a quid pro quo, but that's clearly what he was after. Nobody had to distort what was in the call, and nobody has. Contrary to what Trump says, the whistleblower's complaint matches the call memo that Trump himself has endorsed. Nobody had to invent a fictitious call, and nobody has. Adam Schiff was paraphrasing, and his paraphrase was fair. All anyone has to do is watch what Trump does and listen to what he says. He called for the Chinese government to investigate Biden too. And not on a phone call, but outside in front of cameras. And it was the same deal as he tried with Zelensky. He didn't say, "China, please investigate my political opponent so I'll have some help in my re-election campaign." He said, "China, investigate the Bidens so we can root out corruption." Know what I'm saying? Corruption? Paraphrase. There's a thin veil of legitimacy half-heartedly laid over it, but everybody knows that Trump doesn't give a shit about corruption, and he's just saying that to give himself an out, he thinks. All anyone has to do is pay attention to Trump, and he provides the evidence for his removal from office through his open, repeated conduct. Trump makes the case for his own impeachment, and that case is so strong that there's really no rational argument against it. You might even say it's perfect. Though it would be better to say it's compelling or persuasive or conclusive. Perfect isn't the best word to use in this context. It's a little cumbersome. That means clumsy or awkward, by the way, in case the president is watching.